What's the purpose behind the marketing plan? You excite, you educate, experience, and engage. Let's do this, right? Let's do this and let's have fun with it too. To my first-time listeners, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you being here. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Marketing with In-Depth Podcast, where I'm your host, Nathan Webster, and I'm excited to chop it up with you today. This podcast is going to be the last of 2024, and it's kind of crazy because when I think about all the good times to all the bad times, good God, man, it's been crazy. And I was like, you know what? I already recorded a podcast, and the podcast was going to be about Amazon strike, Big Lots closing, the Honda and Nissan merger. But then I was like, you know what? The whole goal of the podcast is to make marketing more applicable to everything that's going on, because the ambiguity of marketing is so much more simplistic when you can do it on your end, on your way, on your terms. But when it gets to where it becomes larger than what it needs to be, man, subcontract that bad boy out. So here's the thing. And let me say a shout out to my first-time listeners. Thank you for tuning into the show. I hope you like it. Again, I hope it's applicable. And to my worldwide listeners, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate your support. You know, 2024 has been one hell of a year. And like I said, I already recorded and I just deleted it because you know what? It just didn't feel right, because I do like to record my podcast, my episodes somewhat close to the time they get published, but this one's going to get too far off. And there are some things that happened to where I was like, you know what? The Amazon strike went on, still going on. Starbucks strike happened. We can talk about the government shutdown. And I was also thinking about marketing as a whole. You know, this is Let's Talk Marketing, but then I was thinking about looking at my statistics and looking at, which I'm looking at my other screen for those that are watching me. I'm just like, you know what, man, let me do something different, because for not last year, but the year before, for the last few years, or those few years, I had Kent Lewis come on. We did marketing predictions, and they were never right. We kind of talked a little bit about the last year's recap, and that kind of just like was perspective-ish. And, I wanted to just say, my 2024 recap is kind of going to be almost similar, but slightly different than 2025. 24 was about, we are out of the pandemic, established out of the pandemic, right? And out of the pandemic, like I shifted this podcast from Let's Talk Social Entrepreneurship to marketing. I started golfing, right? You saw a different change in presidents. You saw a change in business. Businesses are completely different. Schools, hospitals. We do online virtual stuff now. You see more people wearing face masks. The 2024 year was been a culminating year for I would say, the last 4 years, in my opinion. So here's where, I like to go back and re-listen to podcasts, and I want to go back. Well, I want to go back in a few years to say, man, did I nail this? I think I want to say I somewhat nailed this, because when I went to Nairobi, Kenya this year, it changed my whole perspective on, first and foremost, technology, 2, travel, and 3, Africa. And I'm going to start with Africa first, because Africa is going to be a destination spot here real soon. Like, I'm talking about 10, 15, 20, 30, definitely 50 years. They're going to, according to some reports I saw, there's a lot of building, there's going to be a dip, but then they're going to just run. Going there to see so many educated people. The only thing that's not developed there is the infrastructure for technology. So when I was looking at the infrastructure, technology, the culmination of where we are at today, moving forward to like AI, right? We have, like I was saying, we are done with COVID. If you want to get a flu shot, it's a COVID flu vaccine, right? So here is where, for me, when I think about 2024, it is a year of rewiring. It has been a year to say what we did in the past, we're not getting back to the normal. The normal has been established. The normal is now today. Today is what you make of it. To my 2025 predictions and what's been happening, which is why I say, it's kind of be the same of this. It's going to be more of the same. And the more of the same is, y'all, it's all about hustling, grinding harder. What I realize, though, the difference, and here's the difference that I want to point out to you, is that the difference is you got to work harder, grind more, and be smarter with your time, because it's a lot much harder, because the money is not getting any less than are you going to be able to make less? You probably. Can you make more? I hope so. Can you? Absolutely. Will you? That's the question. And that's the question because we now know that what we saw with the presidential election is that, money is a big deal. And just because you raised there was a saying, if you raise the most money, that was the predictor whether or not you won the election. Well, Kamala didn't win. Trump won. And with Trump winning, you see his cabinet, who he's selecting, and number one, his main guy is Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. So I'm bringing that up because wealth matters in regards to how we build infrastructures and how we determine whether or not something is valuable. And what we determine is valuable in our community is going to be different from each person. And so for each, I'm sorry, I think I got a boogie. I had a boogie for those. I'm sorry for those watching. um, for those that are things that are valuable, when we talk about business, when you talk about people ask me like, why do you do a podcast? I'm like, I did because I used to love helping people. I still do love helping people. This might be the year I might say, hey, look, podcasting has been great, but this might be my last year. I don't know anymore. These are the things to where I'm getting to the point where as I'm predicting, as I'm working harder, I also want to work less. I also want to be smart with how I work. And in my conference that I did every year, like it was really hard this year because we did crush some goals, but at the same time, it feels like we're just starting. So as I'm in my mid 40s, going into my 50s, I'm like, okay, Nathan, like, what are we going to do? So let me make this more about business. When we talk about going to the 4Ps, the product, price, place, promotion. When we look at the 5 things to generate wealth, Adam Smith's 5 factors of building wealth, which is the labor. We can talk about entrepreneurship, knowledge, capital, and land. When we look at which I can use all these more textbook terms, but I'm just going to say life, starting with everyday sense of when I was in Kenya, when I was here, you can use Uber. When it comes to medical, my kids can now do things from their phone and do virtual and request services through their phone. When we look at schooling, education, it's just not college anymore. When we look at sports with the whole Netflix stuff, like the evolution of the way services and products are delivered are so specific to the person's fancy. You can be bougie if you make $15 an hour or if you make $15,000 an hour. It doesn't matter. You can have what you want, when you want it, how you want it. So when I'm thinking about what is the prediction for 2025 that I want you to walk away with, I want you to know that 2025 is going to be one of those years where you can put your stake in the ground and you can run with it. And that running with it is because now post COVID, we have established as this is going to be the norm. And you, as Too Short would say, you get in where you fit in, you find the people that are going to be with you. And the business of providing value has just become so much more important, because not only are things more expensive, but things are getting cut. Things will also get built, but things will get taken away. And all these things, as you're thinking about what will you do, how will you grow, how will you succeed, it's about evolution. And that's what I really want to name this podcast, is evolution. Is because when I was talking to my buddy, I was like, man, can you believe like we just got through the pandemic? And, we were on a road trip, and this road trip, we were just talking about the things that we had to go through, because, initially when the pandemic hit, it was going to hit certain types of people, but it hit everybody. And the evolution was not just it hit one type of people or it hit you this way. Funny, because ground zero was in Seattle, Washington, right around the corner from where I live. And that was ground zero for United States of America for when it comes to COVID. And since then, the whole landscape has changed when it comes to everything. So the question is, and the prediction is for you as your business, how will you evolve to be able to serve the individual or the company in a way that is going to give them what they want, when they want it, and how they want it? So when I was talking about the technology with Kenya and the travel, it was crazy just to see that they hadn't evolved yet, but they're going to. It's gonna happen. It will happen. It just may not involve or entail the people on the lowest end of the spectrum. That's the sad part about evolution. Not all things evolve equally. Not all things evolve at the same time. And not all things evolve at all. So, when I'm doing this podcast, it's in the evening right now. I usually do this at night. Like, again, I already recorded a podcast and I deleted it because I want it to be very real. And the realness was, however you want to put it, is how will you evolve? How will you evolve? And I don't have tens of thousands of listeners yet, right? I may never have it. And I'm okay with that, right? As my faithful listeners out there to you, as my first-time listeners, how are you going to evolve your company, your organization, your business, your fan base, maybe it's your LinkedIn profile, could be your Facebook fan page, your Instagram, YouTube channel. We'll see if TikTok gets banned, but how will you evolve? How will you evolve to where you're going to look back on this like I look back on my content? Again, I will say I like to look back at myself, because when I look back at my content, I'm like, I was doing what? Oh my gosh. Like, turn the channel, turn the TV off, turn the TV out. Now it's like, man, I can't believe I did that, but I gave my all. But that comes back to the question. Will you evolve in the way where you be proud to where you like, man, I can't believe it? And here's the last thing I'll say is that, being in the Marine Corps, and when you look at the way combat is orchestrated, designed, now fought, we're now seeing wars being fought completely different than what I even trained for, which is, the big way you did with boots on the ground, Vietnam type of style. We use drones. We use technology in a different way, and there's more things that are going to be built, which, could be where I'm like, Nathan, look at some Department of Defense contracts, What does that look like? So I will say, someone once told me, stay close to the money, man. If you stay close to the money, you be good to go. But then someone else told me is, Nathan, don't chase money. And, you have those things that kind of tear out you and play with your emotions. But as you evolve, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. And when you do what's best for you, man, I believe in the heart of hearts and the truest of all things That's where you find the most peace and happiness. So that's why I wanted to give this recap. The recap was, man, if you're listening to this, you are blessed beyond being blessed. You are blessed because you were able to survive this year. My mom didn't even survive this year. As she passes, I'm working on her obituary too. When I'm thinking about 2025 and what I'm predicting, when I remember when Kent would do these predictions, and I'm just like, man, how are you? I was like, oh, are you 1 for 1? When we 1 for 8? Are you? He says, no, we never get them correct, but it's just a fun exercise we do with our team. And I would say that's cool, but what's the one prediction that I know that for a fact will happen? You must evolve. You can choose to evolve a lot. You can choose to evolve a little, but no matter what, time will not stop. So with that, y'all, I want you to have the best 2024 year. I hope you are having a great year. If you hear this after 24, I hope you look back and think like, man, how did I grow? And how did I get through COVID? How do I establish myself through COVID? Because 2025, there's no such thing as COVID now, right? We are talking about a new, brand new world. 2025, you will evolve. You will find that there's going to be some hard times. There might be some extremely like teeth crushing, gnarly, grinding times, but there'll be some great times too. And I can't wait to hear about them. I love to hear about them. If you want to share them or if you got a topic, because I'm planning to go in a little bit harder for the podcast and make it the best. Because now I'm saying, you know what? I might got 6 months to a year left. But if I do, man, I'm going to start having some fun. I'm going to bust out of this box because my prediction is I will evolve and I will have good times. So I wish you nothing but the best. Until next time, dream big and Godspeed. I'm out. Hey, if you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please share this episode with others that may be interested in this topic. And also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or social media networks. See you next week for the next episode.